a lot of people believe leaders are born. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's nature or nurture, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think I was born like this, because even before I knew what to do with it, I had it.
Your mom remarried.
Yep.
And now you have two new brothers. You got, Mr. Joe Danforth. Shout out to Coach Joe. Like, how did he train you? I understand that he was heavy into boxing.
Yeah.
Got your hands right. Like, let's talk about like those days, because you got to give it to him. He obviously did a good job with that as well.
Yeah, no doubt. He deserves a ton of credit. I think just having 4 boys and trying to find something to do with them, and he wasn't the type of dad that was going to just take us to practice and drop us off, or take us to practice and watch a coach that didn't really know what he was doing. So he was super involved, and that's how he got into coaching. And
nice. With
coaching and not wanting us to be average, he started doing research on training, and he obviously had a training background from being in the military and boxing as well. And then obviously police go through training as well. So he had a pretty
training his whole life.
Yeah, training his whole life. So he started just buying like a bunch of basketball DVDs and going to different camps and just trying to acquire as much info that he could to put us through some drills and stuff like that. So once we got into that routine, it was just kind of like, we would obviously have our teams that we would practice and play for, but then we would just go to gyms. He would find different gyms for us to go to, put us through different workouts. And that was like where I really went through a big jump, was like 5th grade year when we started really picking up the training.
Yeah.
I was working out every day, and I got a lot better like at that time. And
that's awesome.
I never really looked back.
Which is why, we've come together and we've been able to create this relationship, based off of that training mentality and trying to do something different for your body. And, it's still a budding relationship, but
yeah, I
think it's going in the right direction.
No, for sure. It's got to be a good synergy there, chemistry as well. You know what I mean? Especially at this level, like having someone that you actually get along with. I think we kind of forget those parts. And I was going to say that too about just the background with sports and basketball in particular. I think we skip a lot of like just regular human stuff. So you get amazed and awed by the talent and the skill and the things like that, but you forget that it's still just a person behind, all those decisions. And like you just look at your favorite players of all time, like all of them have a different personality that changes the way they play the game. I think that's something like that we don't really pay a lot of attention to.
So I'm getting ahead of myself, but I don't care, because this is a great point that you make. You're a floor general. You walk and talk like a leader. You look like a leader. Give us an understanding of like, where did this come from? Because a lot of people believe leaders are born. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's nature or nurture, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think I was born like this, because even before I knew what to do with it, I had it. Like even before I knew how to be good at it, I still had it. I still always have been a person that people gravitate towards and rally behind, or, you know what I mean? Like it's just, ever since I was a little kid, I always had that. And I didn't always know how to balance it or what's the best way to do it. I definitely abused it at times. Like I was not the nicest kid, or, you know what I mean, the best leader my whole life.
Sure.
I always was just, always try to think of myself like as a boss, like just in life in general. And that obviously carried over to sports. I always wanted to be a captain, or, somebody that had some say-so. And maybe it comes from being a little brother where you got to get out the way all the time, but also having to earn older guys' respect all the time too.
Right.
It definitely gave me an extra stripe.
Perfect segue into you said you were always younger. Darnell, older brother, he's 3 years older?
Yeah.
And JD's older.
Yeah.
Say something about how just being the younger brother was, how that experience was, whether it was through sports or whatever. And then also let's go into that competitive relationship that I'm sure that you guys had growing up.
Well, I think first you just gotta learn how to sit in the back seat first and foremost, you got to learn how to wait your turn, you know what I mean? And
That's right.
Shut up and sit there and listen and watch, and you might get to be around, or you might get to be at the party, or you might get to be in the car, but you don't say nothing. just sit there and just pay attention.
So you got to be a good follower before you're a good leader.
You got to be able to sit and just take notes. And then second, for a story, we used to do these one-on-ones, like some of the workouts that we would go to in the morning. We would go to the Y, and we used to put these big weight vests on. I don't know how many pounds it was. It was a lot for a kid. And obviously Darnell was much bigger than me. JD was bigger than me. And we would play full court one-on-one.
Like king of the court style?
Yeah. And, you know, I had enough skill to keep up, but it just wasn't. Yeah, it was
like
just not.
Your little brother.
Yeah. And Joe would always instigate and get us riled up. Like, he knew how to press my buttons. So Darnell used to play into it and make me mad, and so we end up fighting. And I just remember he beat me one time, and I just walked up to him and I tried to choke him, but my hands was only big enough to like grab the middle of his throat. So I'm like squeezing him.
Right.
A little YMCA at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm squeezing his throat, trying to choke him, and I'm crying, and they just laughing.
Right.
And I wanted to take one of because it was the old way vest.
Right, with
you
the
could
Velcro.
You could take the pie. Yeah,
right.
I wanted to take one out and just smack him in the head, but I didn't do it.
I'm glad you didn't do that.
Yeah, that was like a weekly thing for us. That's kind of, you know, where I got a lot of my toughness from, was
right.
Fight and compete with them dudes.
Exactly. So that's got to be a huge contribution of what makes you, like, you know, continuously being the underdog and being able to handle that atmosphere and that environment, that energy. Like, I'm used to this. Like, I've been doing this my entire life. Like, it's nothing.
Yeah, and then not only that, it's like I had to do it with them, and then I had to go play against their teams or with their teams. So, you know, I got to go against other guys that were, you know, older, and earn that respect in that way. And then once it wasn't us versus us, then we all was always together. It was us versus the world. But that was a cool dynamic too. Like, they only beat up on me when it was just us.
When I was just training.
Yeah, when there was anybody.
When we outside.
Yeah, nobody can't touch me then. So that was like the best part about it.
That's super dope. Early specialization is basically when a kid, 5th grade, 6th grade, only plays one sport year round. I personally believe it's probably something that we should stay away from. Like you said, you play baseball, football, basketball throughout till high school, which makes sense. But you were also able to play up. Give us your thoughts on, like, if that's recommended and why you were able to do that and succeed, because a lot of kids try to do that and, like, shambles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a if it makes sense type of person. So it's hard to generalize anything. But I just think if it makes sense for your situation, cool. I'm not necessarily a fan of, like, picking one sport at an early age. I think that all kids should try all different type of sports to see what they like and what they don't like. And then once a kid is old enough or mature enough in their self, like, you got to listen to the kid too.
Absolutely.
And that's a big problem in youth sports, is like parents trying to live through the kids.
Vicarious living.
Yeah, I think that, you know, you should definitely give direction and guidance, but I think also you got to be able to listen to what the kid wants.
Sure.
As far as playing up, again, I think if it makes sense, like, if you're good enough to play and compete, I think it's a great thing. It's a great tool. Because at some point in the K through 12, by the time you're a senior, you know what I mean? Then now you're that class that you are a part of, you're going to be so far ahead of those guys because you've been playing up. And I think it's just a huge mental advantage.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me. It was just a big mental advantage that I always had because I was playing against grown men, you know, my whole life. And by the time I got to kids my age, you know, I thought, like you said, I think I'm 10 years older than I am. So that's how I carry myself. Nice. And that comes from, you know, life and growing up, but also from just being around older guys and playing up.
So when you gonna write the How to Raise a Kid book?
Oh, man. I don't know, man. I got to see how mine turned out first.
Your freshman year, you were kind of in and out of the rotation or starting lineup. Your first varsity start, you had a double-double, which is impressive. But nonetheless, you weren't the full-time starter as a freshman. But then your sophomore year, full-time starter, and that's when the magic started happening.
Yeah, for sure. That was it wasn't like a popular thing for freshmen to play varsity back then. And Coach Ott, who's still the coach there now, he definitely wasn't playing freshmen around at that time. So it was like a fight to get me to play, and I was clearly way too good to be playing on the sophomore team.
Right.
But the varsity team was actually really good that year, so I kind of had to wait my turn.
Right.
Caught a couple breaks and guys who were eligible or whatever, things like that. And then I played a little bit, played a role off the bench and, some of the playoff games towards the end. And then, once I got the start, once I got the seniors out of there, my Darnell's class, then it was off to the races after that.
Let's get into recruiting. So we got Wichita State. Obviously, everybody knows that's where you chose to go ultimately, but let's talk about that process. I think a lot of high school kids will be tuning in, watching you in this show. I think it's really cool to give insight on your recruiting process.
Yeah, so I was a part of the one of the few changes that happened in the recruiting era, which was my junior year was the first year that you could do like unlimited calls and texts to the player.
Okay.
Because before that, they only had a certain amount of time that they could call you or text you or whatever due to the rules, and then they opened that up. And I hated the recruiting process. Like, I hated going on visits. I hated coaches calling me, trying to sell me on the university. I just didn't really like that process. So I actually committed my junior year to Wichita. I made my decision a little early. That was the best choice that I had at the time. Wichita was just one of those places where they were buzzing at the time. They were winning. I think I told this story before, but I went on my visit there, and there was the concourse. It's called the Roundhouse. So the concourse is like a big circle.
Sure.
And there's older ladies that walk through there, exercise and things like that. And we were walking with Coach, and one of the ladies stopped them, and she stopped me. She knew who I was already. I was just a high school kid, and she told me, she said, "Yeah, I would sell my house and my husband before I sell my season tickets." And I was laughing at the time because it was funny. Like, it was a crazy thing to say, but when I couldn't get that out of my head.
Right.
I left, and I was like, okay, this is the place that I want to be.
Facts.
These are the people that's coming to the game.
Right. This is special.
This is a special place. I mean, I've never heard nothing like that, because where I come from, it's corny to be a fan. So to see a real fan like that was like that tied into the team, I was like,
sure,
this is a place. They sell out every game. 10,500 people.
Yep.
I knew I probably wasn't gonna start right away, but I was up for the challenge.
And obviously that choice was definitely the right choice for you as well, because your career at Wichita State was also another book that you need to write. So
for sure. I mean, everything looked good now.